With the Resident Evil 4 remake just around the corner and less than a month away, I figured it'd be a good time to revisit the last remake Capcom pinched out and see why this game just came out like such a turd. And quite frankly, I really don't care how many videos there already are on this, these issues have to be talked about. So let's beat this dead horse just a little bit more because Capcom sure doesn't seem to have a problem with it. For starters, I just want to say I called this game being a flop in my Resident Evil 2 remake video, which I made around the time they announced the remake of 3. And I said in that video, if they cut content from 2, I knew they were going to do it even more in this. But it's not just the cut content, far from it. You want to talk gameplay? Bad. The groundbreaking gore physics that Capcom had in the RE engine were removed for some odd reason. And the bodies don't even know how to properly, despawn either. They just kind of explode, and it's really poorly made. Overall, it just looks worse than the Resident Evil 2 remake, and this is by far the worst looking game made in the RE engine, which is saying a lot since REverse exists. I refuse to believe this and DMC5 were made in the same engine. There's also these really scripted over-the-top action chase scenes that rival the ones from Resident Evil 6, which everybody dogs on, but for some reason gives this a pass. And there's also a lot of really odd design choices, like for starters, why is Nemesis dressed like a gimp, and why does every single enemy have to deep throat Jill? The story and the writing is also absolutely atrocious. Let's talk about the biggest thing of everything, Brad's death. Now, why is Brad's death such an important factor? Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is about, of course, Nemesis. Nemesis was a BOW created by Umbrella specifically to kill STARS members, because all the other BOWs they threw at STARS were not able to kill any of them. They had to create a monster just to kill this specially trained unit of police officers. And what does Brad die to? A zombie. What? And then there's other really odd writing choices too, like for example, the STARS line that Jill delivers to Nemesis at the end of the game in the original when she's delivering the final blow.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Is now just thrown in one of the scripted chase sequences when she's running away from Nemesis in a linear corridor.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Not, in the end of the game when she delivers the final blow. It's stuff like this that just makes you feel like that they're just checking boxes. And as much fun as it was being able to play as Carlos more, making him go to the RPD instead of Jill just really doesn't have the same impact on the story as it would have been playing as Jill. Her character has a much more personal connection to this setting, and there's a lot of missed opportunity here for more character development between Jill, Marvin, and even Brad. And it would have been awesome if maybe Brad survived getting bit in the beginning, and then Nemesis crashes into the station later and finishes him off. Which, this would have been way more faithful to the original in the lore, but that's kind of implying the developers cared more about the original beyond crossing off a checklist of things from the original they had to put in the game. And, do these writers even know how to express anger or grief without cursing? And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with cursing, believe me, I've dropped more F-bombs on this channel than Bam Margera on meth. But if the only way you know how to make a character express anger is through excessive cursing, then maybe you're just a worse writer than Bam Margera on meth. These characters sound like middle schoolers who just learned what cursing was.
How is this fucker not dead yet?
And now, of course, we will talk about the cut content. It's still a very big issue, and most of the unique parts of the game were cut, and they were replaced with a copy and paste of the lab from the Resident Evil 2 remake. And this all plays into this big issue of nostalgia. Nostalgia is the point of a remake or a remaster, reimagining, however you want to put it. If the game fails to do that, then it's a failure. The point of these games is to capitalize off of nostalgia. If they didn't remake a significant portion of what made the game nostalgic in the first place, then what's the point? Overall, the map is just way less open-ended than the original was, and with way less to explore and move around in. Being able to freely explore the city was a great feature of the original, and now exploring an entire city is now exploring basically a parking lot. I don't know why between this and the RE2 remake, they just always want to keep the player indoors as much as possible, which is a shame because unlike RE2 remake, some of these outdoor areas actually look super nice. And everyone wants to complain about the clock tower, but not literally the rest of the city being removed. The news office, half of the extra streets and alleyways, The park, I mean, the park was one of the best parts of the original. It was one of the creepiest parts, probably, of the original trilogy. There's also no more choices to make in the game, which was one of the more unique parts of the original as well. They could have made way better, but they just decided to cut them completely. And this not only makes the game lose replay value over the original, but it also shortens the overall length of the game as well. But you have to be asking yourself, is there anything remotely positive to say about this? Well, I got a few. The dodge mechanic was greatly improved. The characters obviously look great. Carlos got more screen time, and the hospital section was actually reworked to be possibly better than the original. Other than that, that's about all I got. Moving on. All these cut corners just so they could release it with the Resident Evil 2 remake and another shitty multiplayer game that literally nobody asked for. This game was a real disappointment and easily one of the worst and laziest things besides our Reverse that Capcom has ever slapped the name on. And yes, I mean that includes all of the rail shooters, the Game Boy games, etc. Now, the point of me bringing all this up is because, like I said, the Resident Evil 4 remake is on the horizon, and we all know that Capcom has also been receiving a hell of a lot of pressure to also remake Code Veronica. So while at the time being they're only showing Resident Evil 4, don't be surprised if they have not only another remake up their sleeve, but if some quality is cut from Resident Evil 4, which overall, I'm gonna say, I'm very impressed so far because as someone that grew up playing the original Resident Evil 4 and it was a key part of my childhood, it not only looks really faithful, but has the potential to be better than the original. So this isn't coming from a negative standpoint, but also a cautionary standpoint of, hey, don't have your expectations crazy high. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you like stuff like this, make sure to check out the rest of the content on my channel. I make stuff like this literally all the time, so if this was your kind of thing, definitely make sure to subscribe. Always cranking out new content. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and stick around. There is only a single good line in this game that I will use to end this overview of the game.
Get off my train, shit bird!